Okay, so you come into your class and you ask the kids, who here remembers what we learned last week? And all you get is crickets. That is a situation you never want to be in as a children's ministry worker. You want your classes to be exciting, you want them to be engaging, you want them to be super memorable. But what if it isn't? What if no matter how hard you try, it just seems like the whole thing falls flat? In the book Made to Stick, the Heath brothers present a way to immediately make what you have to say more gripping and memorable. It's not more charisma, it's not some teaching magic or some $20,000 course. It's just a practical 6-step checklist. But it works. Now, out of the 6, how many are you already using? Let's find out. All right, so our 6 points correspond to the letters in the word success, minus that last S for those of us who can't spell. Are you ready? Here we go. Our first word is simple. We want to find the main truth we want and then define it clearly, even write it down. Now, this sounds easy. Sure, I could do that, but it's much harder than you think, and it's hard because it requires focus. See, as teachers, we tend to want to add more information until we end up trying to teach 12 different points with 7 different subpoints each, all at the same time. And that is not teaching, that is information overload, and it goes in one ear and out the other. Now let's imagine you had to join 2 boards together. You could use as many nails as you want, but you only get 5 whacks with the hammer. Now, would you rather hit 5 nails once or 1 nail 5 times? See, by focusing on one single truth, our odds of getting it to stick with our class can go way up. We want it to be simple, like a proverb. See, we all remember many of the morals from Aesop's fables. Why? Well, for one thing, he couched the truth in a simple, concrete story, which we will talk about later. But secondly, the morals have become distilled down into bite-sized nuggets that are easily remembered and mentally digested, what we call proverbs. Now, tell me, how would you do if you had to remember the moral that
the reward for the effort exerted will be granted to that individual with whom the simple virtues of applauding and stalwart determination and indomitable will most closely reside?
Yeah, no, I got that. That's simple, right? Okay, maybe not. Okay, it's kind of tough. But what about slow and steady wins the race? That's way better, right? Another example. Which of these numbers would be easier to memorize? See, it doesn't make sense to overload your students with too much information. Simplify, find the core. Think of it like a trunk of a tree, and then make it short and simple. Then make everything you do serve your core in some way. Everything else is there just to review or to reinforce that truth in a different or unique way. Repeat it over and over and review it again and again until that thing is cemented in their brain. So remember, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Oh, are we not? We'll try something else. So remember, KISS. Keep it super simple. You got it? Our next word is unexpected. People are boring because people are predictable. We all have a guessing machine in our brain, and it's always making predictions about the future based on the past. Now, if too many of these predictions are correct, we think we know what's going to happen next, and then we get bored. But when something happens that we didn't foresee, it breaks our guesser. It makes us sit up. It makes us pay attention. The result is surprise, and that is a good thing, but it isn't good enough. See, that's just step 1. Step 2 is to engage their curiosity. So once you've surprised them by breaking their guesser, you can keep them engaged by piquing their interest. And this is done in 2 main ways. So first is knowledge gaps or curiosity loops. This is when you leave out important information that they can't easily guess. Examples include fill in the blanks, using a numbered list, having objects set up for later, or better yet, having something conspicuously hidden under a covering. You can ask leading questions or alluding to something that will be discussed later. Authors use this form and it's called foreshadowing. Now, each of these examples inform the listener, whether subconsciously or otherwise, that there's missing information that they don't have. This arouses their natural curiosity and it keeps them engaged until that curiosity itch gets scratched. But if you do it right, then you're opening up a new loop as you're closing an old one, and it keeps them entertained. Second is to flip your information flow. This is when you rearrange your information for the biggest impact possible. So news articles, they usually give you the most important information first, and then the less important stuff as you get further down the article. But a mystery is just the opposite. See, imagine a mystery where you discover who, what, how, and why the crime happened in the first chapter. And then the rest of the entire book is just about the hero tediously catching up to what you already know. Okay? Nobody's gonna finish that book, except maybe the author's mother. Why? Because she's a kind and caring person, that's why. No, I mean, why wouldn't anyone finish that book? It's because it's boring. The whole point of a mystery is that it's a mystery, right? There are clues, there are facts that we don't quite understand yet. There are questions we have that are unanswered, but we know that everything is building up to that big payoff at the end where it all comes together and we get the whole picture. It is super satisfying and we will stay till the end. Well, the same thing applies to how you present your lesson. You get to choose how you present it. You can present it as a news story or as a mystery. For example, you could start with, today we're going to learn about David and Goliath. Or you could flip the information flow and start with, okay kids, in a fight, would you rather have a small smooth stone or a sword, a spear, and a shield? And then you could add, would you believe me if I told you that the guy with the stone won? Now that's a bit more interesting, right? Flip your flow and make it a mystery. And our next word is concrete. Everybody speaks the language of tangible. As we get older and smarter, we are able to think and speak in the abstract, but if we really want to communicate clearly, then we're going to have to step back down and use the language everybody knows, especially when you're working with kids. Thankfully, staying concrete is pretty straightforward. The more senses we can engage, the better. So always include something physical when possible. Give your class something to look at, something to physically feel, or to smell, or to taste, or to do. Use real-life examples if you can. Represent abstract ideas with tangible things. Use analogies. Never tell them if you can show them. And also avoid big numbers and statistics. They may be true, but they're really hard to wrap our minds around. Instead, rephrase the relationship of the numbers into things that people do understand. Now, if you do this right, it can even become something unexpected that can help break their guesser. As an example, instead of comparing the national average annual income with Jeff Bezos's average annual income through numbers, we can show the difference by using the thickness of a quarter and the height of the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, that's right. Louis Giglio used this technique brilliantly in his How Great Is Our God talk. And if you have not seen it yet, no spoilers here, you need to go and watch it. And when you do, don't forget to grab a golf ball. You'll thank me later. One very concrete thing you can do right now is to beep beep on that like button. Seriously, it helps this content get to more people just like you. Our next word is credible. Now this one's important because it doesn't do anyone any good if what we're teaching them isn't true. We want our students to trust us and therefore learn what we're teaching them. To do that, we need to have a reliable source of information, and we need to be sure that we know our stuff really, really well. Obviously, our most credible source is the Bible, but there are many more. The list includes personal testimonies, history, testable science, authorities, anti-authorities, and so on. The point is that we want to make sure that everything we teach can be verified through another source. We don't ever want to just teach something that we made up on our own. We can bring the data to help prove our point, but just don't forget to transfer it into something concrete. Never leave numbers as only numbers. Ultimately, we want our students to have enough evidence to trust what we have to say. Next, the E is for emotional. In order for people to act, they first have to care. Your goal is to get your audience to care about your message. Now, emotion is about feeling, so you want to avoid sterile things like analytics and generalities at this point. Work on finding new and interesting ways to express your message. One simple way is to just ask how they would feel in a situation. There are three main ways you can help your students care. First off, you can associate what you're teaching them with something they already care about. So having them understand God's sacrificial love for them is going to be way easier if you have them think about giving up the person they love the most to rescue someone like the school bully. Or if your little boys love monster trucks, then make up a story about monster trucks that incorporates your core message. Number two is to appeal to their self-interest. In other words, explain the benefits of what you're teaching. In tangible ways, of course. When you can tie your message into real life benefits and consequences that they can understand and relate to, that's going to help them feel the need of what you're teaching. And the final way is to appeal to their identity. people tend to make decisions based on the type of person they believe themselves to be. This includes kids. If what we're telling them aligns with their perception of who they are, they're going to be more likely to accept it. Now, this gets really cool when you add in the dynamic of our identity in Christ. It takes on huge implications. And finally, S is for stories. Stories are by far one of the stickiest ways we communicate. Stories are how humans have communicated for thousands of years. Stories were Jesus' teaching vehicle of choice, and billions of dollars are spent annually on stories through movies and novels and the like. Everybody loves a good story. In fact, a good story often embodies all the other points that we've already discussed. They're concrete, they're true to life, making them credible. Many good stories are surprising and emotionally gripping, and beneath all the details, they often present a simple truth. This makes stories an incredible teaching tool. So if you don't remember anything else, remember this: tell simple, concrete stories. Or you could say, tell concrete stories with a simple message. Stories have built-in cues and memory helps that make them almost impossible to forget. Use this to your advantage by making sure you've got a story to share every time. Now, obviously this is easier said than done, but for now, just choose to start telling stories and choose to start collecting good stories. Keep a document or a folder of inspiring stories and then practice. Copy good storytellers that you know and enjoy. So there you have it, the 6-point success list for making your lessons unforgettable. How'd you do? Let us know in the comments which ones were new for you. These steps work, okay? They're simple to learn. They're actually pretty easy to implement once you get the hang of it. In fact, this video has every one of the 6 points in it at some point. Did you notice? Did you see them? Okay, not gonna lie, stories was a little on the skippy side, but that is because stories are such a big topic, we're gonna save them for another time. We all have the ability to teach life-changing truth to the next generation, and may we never be accused of making it boring or forgettable. Choose to take the time to get familiar with each of these points, and then use this checklist the next time that you're creating content to share. The ideas we share can only change lives if they remain in the student's cranium long enough to be effective. So now you have what you need. Go out there, create an experience that your students will never forget.